baboon, nothing less than the worst of all animals. Long considered by worldwide zoologists to be the only animal in the world to feel malice, the baboon is also emotionally detested by every man, woman, or child on the street. With its constant glare, the hideous anatomy of its rear end, and its tendency to kill people, the baboon is accompanied by an aura of fear and terror. Therefore is only one of the reasons the British Museum gave this wooden rendition of a baboon such a prominent place, positioning it as one enters a ground floor room. It is also likely the statue was created by one of the children of the Illuminati. It has been the policy of Illuminati and Freemasons to allow their spoilt children to create with only wooden materials, and therefore when it comes time to present the work to the public, which of course means not hinting from whence it came, as the Illuminati and Freemasons are secret societies, the work is snuck into the ranks of African tribal artwork due on envy. Any sane African would want nothing to do with a baboon, even in artwork, and therefore could not have created this piece like the tag would tell you. No, and just to further belabor the point, it is only the vile, useless, spoilt children of the Illuminati slash Freemasons who could ever love such a thing as a baboon and take that love far enough to depict the baboon in statuary. Now, here is an incredible story, forgotten in the sands of popular culture history. In 1983, an enormously popular adventure film called Raiders of the Lost Ark was released in America. It was loosely based around the idea of Nazis stealing the Ark of the Covenant, one of the most famous articles of faith in the Bible, an object that ranks along with the Holy Grail for sheer popularity. Incredibly, for all the second sight and all knowingness of the Illuminati slash Freemasons, they entirely missed this film coming. But the day after the movie was released and the world understood that the Ark of the Covenant would be a difficult object to get hold of, understood that perhaps it was an object of fancy that didn't even exist, the British Museum quietly slipped the tag off of this particular object you see now, which they had hitherto claimed was the Ark of the Covenant. Amazing. Only a mind addled by years of abuse of the liquor known as absinthe that is legal only in Spain and is tinged green would dream up this arrangement of the bearded griffin guardians that once stood at the entrance of the tomb of Ramses III. In the original tomb, the statues would have stood one behind the other, so that if you solved and survived the riddle or trap of the first statue, the second statue would be right behind it to finish you off. Secondly, and this is where the British Museum's curator's known habit for refined absinthe comes into play, there was no trouble taken to leave the statues where they once were, in their original environment, and preserve them there. Glass casing could have been set up in their original environment, along with a 24-hour guard and a live-in preservation expert. Instead, like all of the rest of the many objects in the British Museum, the bearded griffin guardians They were transported out of their original place on the planet and placed in these cold, dead halls. And though this documentarian hesitates to advance in harshness, but that is to say, in these cold, dead halls of this cold, dead museum, in the cold heart of the equally cold city of London. The statues, to be met with heat and surprise, are met instead with melancholy aforethought. This documentarian does apologize for this shot, which is admittedly less than illuminating, but what appears at first a block of twisted copper and lead is in fact a copper and lead depiction of the Last Supper and the events surrounding thereof. The 5 clusters of the copper represent the 5 on a 6-sided die. Dice being one of the exceedingly popular pastimes during the rise of Christianity. Interestingly, the British Museum has chosen to shine a pair of automobile headlights at this particular piece, and that may have actually been a wise choice on their part. It certainly causes the surfaces of the copper to glint all the better, probably what the author of the piece originally intended. What was certainly not intended was for the piece to be hung on the wall in some flailing imitation of the Last Supper's connotations of crucifixion, and so a near miss of propriety as far as the British Museum goes here. If this piece could be better seen, however, it is of avid interest to those who would peer into the scrying glass of Christian times, just after Jesus' passing, and just prior to the time of Daniel and the lion. Again, and that is to say, if only the piece could be seen, the bottom left corner shows Jesus sneaking over the wall into the city. The bottom right corner shows the sermon. The upper right corner is a tableau of Jesus talking to people fishing, and the upper left corner is, of course, the scene of Jesus walking on the way to his sermon. All of these scenes, of course, orbiting in a square the copper-fashioned event of the Last Supper. An elegiac piece that suffers from being hung too high for the human eye, not to mention trapped behind glass.